I get a couple of questions from the subcommittee, but nothing too crazy. And then all of a sudden, like, everyone is ready to vote, and they're going to vote for this thing. And then one of my Republican colleagues says, well, I actually have another question. Okay, you know that dude in school that asks questions on like a Friday afternoon? This is a good guy. He's a friend of mine. I shot him a look that I have not given to another human being since I was in Iraq. Right, and he goes, well, and he looks at me and he goes, I think we're ready to vote. And so we get it passes out of the Senate, and we get a bill signed. And here's what was really nice about this. And they actually did a little farmer's market right there in front of the governor's mansion. And it was an excellent opportunity for a number of my colleagues who, quite frankly, don't get out to a lot of farmers markets. They don't get out to a lot of conventions like this. To be able to talk with the people that provide these goods, provide these services, and understand that the people that they're talking to are people that are genuinely invested in this issue, not just as an occupation, but really as a way of life.
Place that lay provider people, folks like us, all the way up through your foundation. You're all sitting upright, right? You haven't slumped out of your chair onto the ground, so your heart is beating and you have a decent blood pressure. That is as difficult as that assessment needs to be, okay? And if you have any kind of deviation of any of those things, then you dig in a little deeper, right? Why are they blue? Why are they gray? Like, these are colors humans are not supposed to be.
A couple things on these birds. So number one, the head should pull off, okay? We're not gonna cut the head, we're just gonna pull it. If you do your kill cut well, it should pop off very simply and very easy. This one actually came off in the plucker, which is also correct. So that's why I say spend the money on a scalder, especially because here's the thing, if you're butchering just you and the missus, or you by yourself, or the missus by herself, right? Okay, forget the fancy stuff, like, you know, she doesn't need a new dress, she needs a scalder. You want your Homestead lady to be happy, you go buy her a real nice scalder. She'll be like, let's go. Because you can't be two places at once, right? So if you're having to stand there and dunk those birds for a full minute, you're not able to do something else, okay? So I highly recommend, if you can get one that's automatic, then you don't have to deal with it on a regular basis. It'll take, hey, those did good. All right, cool.
Remember that wherever you are, if you haven't already disturbed this soil a lot, you're living in an ecosystem that is presently successful. That means that the soil is growing plants, the plants are photosynthesizing, and all the other living things in your area are managing to get their meals, live, die, reproduce. It's a successful living community. It's providing all the goods and all the services that a successful living community requires, that you require, whether you know it or not. So the first thing you want to do is look at your land and think, this is working. I don't want to erase it. I want to get it to produce more people's food. Because let's face it, the local vacant lot, however successful it is as an ecosystem, maybe it produces a few mushrooms and blackberries, but it's not producing a lot of you food. And so you're going to work with that ecosystem as it is to produce your food. To do that successfully, sustainably, for millennia, humankind has partnered with grass-eating, forage-eating animals that improve the grass, improve the forage as they eat it. This isn't the time for a breakdown on rotational grazing, but a rotationally grazed cow can turn 2 acres of so-so grasslands into meat, milk, and manure to improve her food and feed you year-round.
Many people talk about chicken math. Chicken math never happens on our farm because I'm not a good chicken tender. I kind of let them go where they want and they disappear. It's like chicken subtraction. But cow math works on our farm. Our farm is a cow math farm. You start with 2 and you end up with like 9 or 12 and your children come and say, Mom, I counted our cows. Did you know we had 9? And I'm like, that can't be right. We just started with 2. So we have a lot of cows. We breed and raise our own pork, chicken, ducks. The occasional turkey makes it into the freezer. And we have freezers so full that it's a big problem for us when an animal needs to be harvested. We're like, oh, we don't have room in the freezer. But that just means we get to be very generous.
Your role as fathers, mothers, is a crucial role. And I just, if nothing else, I can just encourage you to embrace that role. And don't look to the world on how to do it. Look to God's design on how to do it. Be willing to step outside the box. Be willing to change what you've been doing. Be willing to, like I said, maybe adjust your career. You don't have to. There's a way you can tweak it, or you can get out of it, if you can start maybe a side business while you're continuing this income. But be willing to do it. I was willing to do it. I'm still willing to do it. I'm not married to any particular income stream, because those can change, as we all know, right?
The way this information was passed down generationally forever before, Microsoft and Apple was word of mouth, showing you, mentor, grandfather, grandmother showing you what to do. And so that's still the best way to learn this, okay? And so she called me, she's like, dang, I gotta butcher these rabbits. Like, you do know I do know how to butcher rabbits. Like, I can do that, And she's like, well, yeah. Like, let me come over and help you with these things. Well, no, I don't really want to. You're busy. And I was like, let me come over and help you. And she's like, no. Like, Renee, let me come over and help you butcher these rabbits. It'll be fun. We'll have a good time. And so the story there is to say, not that I'm a good person. The story is most mentors want to help, right? They want to teach you. So if you know something, right, be ready to give it away. The other big thing is to understand the Department of Agriculture rules in your state. Okay? For example, here in Virginia and a lot of other southern states, and I think it's actually like 46 of 50 states, rabbits are classified as poultry. The U.S. Department of Agriculture classifies rabbits as poultry, and most of your state Departments of Agriculture follow that classification standard. And because of that, if you don't want to raise chickens, because of everything else we already talked about, you have the ability to sell up to 1,000 processed rabbits from your property. You process them on your property from a non-inspected facility directly to the consumer.
So when we brought our property, like I told you, we had raw land. We didn't even have a well. We bathed in the river until October. Okay? It was cold at the end. And then a local rancher, he allowed us to come up to their barn and they had a bathroom and we would shower up there. And so it was really nice, but we didn't have water until November. So it was a very long time to do that. So here are a few tips that I put together of how you can save thousands on infrastructure costs if you are starting from raw land or if you're needing to update it. And the first tip that I can give you is live on your land. I know that you hear that from other speakers because it is true.
And I know a lot of you guys are like, I don't like fermented foods because you never tried them, because the lost art of fermentation was killed the moment the grocery stores hit the market. And now look at where we are with grocery stores. So raise enough meat to last to the next harvest. Okay, I made a post on social media, I'm like, I don't really care. And this is what I said, okay? Some of you guys are gonna laugh because you heard me say this yesterday. So, homesteaders aren't preppers, okay? We are not created to prep. We are created to live a lifestyle that gets us from point A to point B, meaning from this season to the next season, with a little bit of extra, so we can make sure that we're in harvest all the time. That is what God has taught us to do. Okay? Now, in the back situation, those 1,500 jars that you put in your pantry, right, that you won't even get to finish in one season, what are you gonna do with those jars? You got 25 pounds to pack on your back and walk off. You have a skill set that you need to take with you so you can move on and continue to do what you need to do in a new location. Think about the season that you're in and think about how you're going to achieve it and think about what you're going to do to move forward. And it doesn't mean that you can't have extra, because sometimes the tomato yield may be cruddy and then you've got to turn around and rely on that going forward, and that's okay. But if you're putting up 2,000 jars a year in one calendar growing season and you're not eating it within an 18-month period, are you making a wise choice for your investment? Your skill set, based on what God has given you, is a skill set of good animal husbandry, knowing your land and knowing how to put up the harvest until the next growing season or the next harvesting season.
Let's say you have, Sam's Club near you. You can buy olive oil and coconut oil. You can do it with that. You can do it with shea butter. There's so many different options. Or let's say you have tallow or a connection to tallow. You can use that too. So you don't, just because we're showing you one recipe, don't feel like you're stuck into that. You can explore and experiment. That's what the fun part of lab science is. And I used to be a lab science teacher, so it's going to come out today.
Really resilient, small communities that can take care of themselves. And so this is like one of the avenues that they're kind of pushing that into, is if we get people started with a high tunnel, they're going to be more likely to not only feed themselves, but also their community. The trucks and stuff stop tomorrow. We have farmers throughout the country that can help provide for everybody. So it's a cost share program. You can buy some of those things up front, like build your pond, build your high tunnel, and then they reimburse you the cost of it. So it's an incentive for you doing these conservation practices. So high tunnels are part of that. Generally, the applications are wrapped up in November. So if you want to do that for this season, you got to get going. You generally need a farm number, which you can get from the Farm Service Agency. And then you just walk into your NRCS office and be like, yo, tell me, literally say it, yo, tell me about these high tunnels. And they'll get you connected with some resources.
out. Tap it a little bit, and then you have flour.
But now this one does all the other stuff. This doesn't.
But then around the 1950s and definitely the 80s and onwards, we're getting cookbooks that are more focused on processed foods. Food companies are making their own cookbooks so that we can buy their commercialized, their products. The emphasis is on pronto plates, so meals that you can make with ingredients that are already ready, but we just saw what we're being exposed to when we do that. And it's more about pleasure eating, right? It's all about the taste versus nutritional density. So here's what I think. The cookbooks, my favorite cookbook, I forgot to bring my cookbook from my Nana that still smells like her. I have like the original Joy of Cooking book. It is nothing like these new ones that are out here, and I don't buy the newer ones, do not. But things get lost, like seasonal cooking gets lost in our newer cookbooks, if that's what you're looking for.
I'm going to free you from not having to put everything in a jar. Okay? Your foundation for what you should put up, even though I raise all my own meat, I have all my own meat in my freezers, is I do canned meat.
So basically, a lot of that depends on her forage, like what is she eating, because you can build your milk up a little bit with higher protein levels. Like if she's on spring clover, if she's fresh, and she's getting some alfalfa every day, you're going to easily get more than 2 pounds a day. Maybe even close to 4, right? But just depending on some of those things. But I would say you're going to be pretty consistent around 1.5 to 2.5.
So what I'm going to talk to you today, and all of you beekeepers out there, most of you are starting or you're keeping bees like I started. When I started 6 years ago, we started because of honey. I love honey. I've grown up on honey, peanut butter and honey sandwiches since I was old enough to remember. We put honey today in our coffee and our tea, and we all know honey is medicine. It's allergy medicine. It's good for your skin. You can do all kinds of things with honey. And so, starting our homestead, after we got the Great Pyrenees and the chickens, the next thing I did was I ordered 3 packages of bees. I got a mentor, I went to the bee club, I started reading books, perusing books, watching videos, doing all the things you're supposed to do when you become a beekeeper. And so I started down the normal, orthodox, conventional, I'm going to call it commercial way to beekeep. All of beekeeping in the Western world all follows commercial beekeeping. Commercial beekeeping is where the money's at, billions of dollars. And some of those dollars trickle down into the universities, into the ag extensions. And the ag extensions support the local bee clubs. And so the way to keep bees starts at the commercial level and comes all the way down to us if we want to keep bees, right? So until you know different, you're going to go, okay, I'm going to do exactly what the experts tell me to do, right? They said, buy bees. I say, don't buy bees. They said, get vertical boxes. I say, don't get vertical boxes. They said, get wax or plastic foundation and put those in your hives. I say, don't do that. They say, feed your bees sugar water or they'll die. I say, don't do that. They say treat your bees for varroa mites, which is a bee tick, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. I don't do that, and I say don't do that. It doesn't fit our farm model. We keep hardy cows, we keep hardy hogs. We want our hogs to have their piglets by themselves. We want our cows to go eat grass and bring us milk. And we joke we have a get tougher die farm, and that's really not a lie.
I didn't want a law firm to take up my best hours, which are like 10 to 2. I mean, I don't have that many best hours. And so I need to give those best hours to my children. And my children would act better, and you'd have more fun with them during that, during their best hours. And they're not the best when it's nap time or when it's, evening, and you want to be able to talk to them and to train them, and in times where they can understand, they can hear you. And that was an important part of the equation. And selfishly, I didn't want to hand my kids over to somebody earlier than I actually had to.
Joel and I can't do it alone. And farmers can't do it alone. How many farmers are left in America? There's a few million farming households left in America. How many people identify as homesteaders in America now? It's somewhere between 5 and 15 million people identify as. It's amazing how much it's grown over the past few decades. We need your help because there's a lot of you, there's not many farmers left. So we live in Kentucky. Again, I did not grow up growing anything. We started complete from scratch. I did something I thought was humanly impossible. I bought a farm, soil not included.
And when you tell them how important they are, that's usually all the reward that they really need. But be prepared to reward them with other things, like cookies or whatever they really love. When the going gets tough and they don't want to stick with you, one of the fastest ways to build endurance is when your 4-year-old says, I'm tired of picking beans. You go a little further down the line and you draw a line and you say, okay, you pick until you get to this line and then you may quit. When they say they're done or tired, never let them quit right there. Give them a little more to do, because that helps them develop endurance. It stretches their attention span. If they say they're tired of washing dishes, say, okay, wash all of these and mommy will wash the rest of these. And then when they're older, like say 10, they have to wash, all the family's dishes. And if they start complaining a lot about washing dishes, you're going to take note of that and say, my child is not able to, she's not getting any reward out of this, right? She can't see the end of it. It feels endless. Every day she's doing the same thing, and she's really getting bogged down. So you're going to say something like, okay, I feel that you're frustrated with having to wash the dishes. How about, if you have a good attitude about washing the dishes and they're clean, you can stop here and I'll wash the pots and pans for you. Number one, you're hearing them. You're not rewarding their complaining. You're simply hearing what they're saying and noting that they can't see the end. And you're going to create a reward for them, right? So they're going to get to the end of the line that you drew, and they're going to say, oh, I did all of that. And then you're going to build on that good feeling that they get, because they haven't been able to get it because it's too big of a chore. So you're going to break it down so that their reward is within easier reach. Their reward of I did a good job is going to be within easier reach for them, and then you'll build on that.
We felt that call, wherever it came from, to do something more real, something more wholesome, something more meaningful with our time. Because time is not an infinite resource for any of us. So what are we going to do with the time we have here?
One of these is that shelter is almost always your top survival priority. So we need shelter from lots of different things. And shelter comes in many different forms. Yesterday we talked about shelter being your clothing. Not only does it shelter you from shame, it also shelters you from the cold. It blocks the sun from burning your skin. It's helpful. It's good stuff. It protects us from insect bites and, scrapes and scratches and all of that good stuff. And if your clothes aren't adequate enough, we stuff them with insulation if we're gonna get too cold in the clothing that we are wearing. And there's other ways to modify your clothing as well. So clothes are a shelter. Your car could be a shelter. If we start researching emergency scenarios all the way back to the first automobiles, we will find stories where people got stuck somewhere with a vehicle, and we will see a pattern emerge over and over. Folks that stayed with the car had a higher percentage of survival than folks who left the car looking for help, water, some resource they did not have.
Please remember, all of those products that you're going to make that I'm talking about, remember they are alive. They change. So the minute you make this cottage cheese and you put it in the fridge, in 1 hour it's a perfect fresh flour cheese. You leave it in the fridge for 3 days, 4 days, it's not going to taste that good anymore because it's going to keep on the fermentation process because the process keeps on going. So that's what, just keep in mind. What you do with it, for example, you had it, you forgot about it for 3 days. Well, if it just smells a little bit more, sour, I make kind of just pancakes out of it, or I add it to some bacon, or I do, I don't know, cream cheese, whatever, pie, whatever. Just cook with it, and it's gonna, if it still smells good, it's just more sour and not so pleasant to you. So remember that the products you're gonna be making from your own milk with flour are gonna be alive, full of probiotics products that will change all the time. They will not be able to stay for a month on the shelf because they continue changing their structure. And this is what I would like you to learn is when is the best moment for you to stop that process, move it into the refrigerator and slow down the process. So to get the most benefits out of this product. Because again, sourdough, it can over-ferment and lose its qualities. And it's not going to be giving you the results that you can get from it. So same thing with this. Just don't forget that this is a life product.